And Romans 2:11 reads, "For God shows no partiality, no arbitrary favoritism. With him, one person is not more important than another." And if I could use for a subject today, I would like to use the subject of no limits. No limits. And we oftentimes think that only certain things could happen for certain people. Has anybody ever felt that way? Because I'm not this person or I'm not from that group, then the possibilities of something like this or like that happening for me, I just can't see how that is going to happen. If you are not from a certain area, um, or if you're not from a certain class of people, then you feel like you are excluded from certain things happening for you, especially, and typically we have that mentality when it comes to big things happening for us. Come on here, we're not really concerned about the small things, but we somehow, some way or another, we start believing that when it comes to the big things of God. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The little things, oh yeah, that stuff I can do on my own. But when it comes to the big things, those are the things that I really struggle with. Those are the things that I'm really questioning, if I have to be this, or if I have to be that, or if I have to have, come on here, women, I have to have a certain look in order to get this certain kind of guy. Or, the guys, I might have to have this much in my bank account to get this kind of woman. And if I don't have this much in my bank account, then, I'm gonna probably just have to settle for whatever I can get. And if you don't have a certain last name, then, you're looked at, or sometimes you even treat your own self differently. But there are times that people will learn your name because you represented his name above all the other names. Did somebody just catch that? There are some times that people will learn your name because you represented his name above all other names. Mm. And when we start to develop that mentality, we start to understand that, oh God, my last name don't matter. Williams don't matter. Taylor don't matter. Corbett doesn't matter. Um, any Bromell doesn't matter. Smith doesn't matter. But Irving even doesn't matter. But Jesus, that name matters. That name carries more weight than my own. Come on here. And as we begin to look into our text, we see that Paul is addressing some ideas that some religious people and some individuals had. They thought that if you were not of a certain group of people, then you would be judged a lot differently. And they also believe that if you were of a certain group or a certain class of people, or if you was born into a certain family, then you could do other things that other people could not do. And one of the biggest misconceptions of that is that they put a God label on it. They said that if you were not from a certain social class, if you was not born into a certain group, if you were not born into a certain belief, if you didn't have the name or the title of a Jew or, a Gentile, then, you had certain restrictions that came along with how you were born. Mm. Or you had certain restrictions at how you would be treated. So basically what they would say is that God would judge one group by one standard and another group by a whole nother standard. And the Apostle Paul is addressing this, and he would go on to more plainly say that God has one standard that he applies to everybody. Mm. He has one standard that he applies to everybody. If God is willing to do it for one, then God is willing to do it for another. How many of us know that but watch this, I mean, really know it. I mean, really, really know it. That if God is willing to do it for one person, that means God is willing to do it for another person. God does not look at your social class. God does not look at your bank account. There are certain things that God does not even factor in when he is doing what he does. So if God says that you're going to get the house, God, guess what? God factored in your finances before he even gave you that promise. Did somebody just catch that? God factored in everything that would be an intricate part of what he said. He knew about the job situation, but he still called you blessed. He knew about the economy, but he still said, I wish above all things that you will prosper. Come on here. So watch this. Sometimes we tripping out for nothing. He knew who was going to take office. He knew who wasn't going to be in office. He even, watch this, he even meticulously calculated in inflation. Oh my God. For somebody, you can stop fussing when you pull up at the gas tank now or when you go into the grocery store, because you need to understand that was already calculated in. When God said, I called you blessed, when God said, I'm going to prosper you, when God said, I'm going to bless you, I need for you to understand that he had already calculated in everything that we are seeing today. Mm. He calculated that in. I need for somebody to just really grab that, because sometimes we dread going to the grocery stores. And anybody that dreads, like right lately, you've been feeling some type of way about pulling up to the grocery store. You know you got to do it, but oh my God. It was the first thing you say. It was this price last year. It was that price that year. But guess what? We in 2024 now, but we still have a God promise despite the prices. There is a God word despite the prices. There's no limit. And that's one of the things that the Apostle Paul is addressing. And I want to share this little story with you. On yesterday, my husband and I, we went to go get lunch or dinner um, for our adult children. And our oldest son, we have lots of grandchildren at this point. Um, but we have two that are closest to us. And so my husband and I, on yesterday, we went to go, we offered to go pick up dinner for them. Um, and so our youngest, he ordered what he was ordering, and our oldest son just couldn't seem to make up his mind about what he may or may not want it. He's very interesting when it comes to food, especially food that he probably has not tried before. So he wanted us to go through all the regimen of sending him pictures and all of this other stuff. And that was just a little bit much for me. So I didn't do that. So I just said, what does the baby want? So we asked him, what does the baby want? And so and I'm doing this for illustration purposes because I want to show you something. The title of our message today is called No Limits. And so my husband and I, we were willing, I think we drove about 40 minutes we drove about 40 minutes to go get the food. And we were eating Chinese food. So it's a particular place that we get it from because it reminds us, it's the closest thing that reminds us of good Chinese food. So we drove about 40 minutes to go get it. And I want you to understand that we went to go get the food. And as we were going to get the food, this was, first of all, let me show you the different people that we were feeding. If you will look at your screen, I'm going to show you a picture of my adults, and then our babies. If you look at the screen, you can see that those are some pretty thick and strong guys up there. But then down to the bottom, you will see a picture of a little girl who is not as big and strong as they are. Up top, we have Antonio. We have, and for those of you who have never seen him, in the middle is the man of my life, the man that, God has placed in my life to help make things possible for me. That is Corbett. Some of you may know him as Antonio or Jerome, but I just pretty much, Crystal has been around me to the point that she calls him Corbett too. Nevertheless, and then on the far, it's the right of my screen, maybe left on your screen, but that is Ryan's dad. So Ryan is at the bottom. Um, and so I went to go get, we were willing to go get the food. And I'm going to ask Antonio to leave the picture up just for a minute. Um, because as we were going to get the food, I knew that Ryan, and if you can look at the picture, Ryan is nowhere the size of her dad, her uncle, or her papa. That's what she calls him, her papa. So she's nowhere near the size, but I just want to show you, this is the size of plate that Corbin's food came in, and Antonio's food came in something like this. But when it came to Ryan, the smallest thing that they had was what they call a bowl. And this is a pretty still big size for a toddler. She will be 2 October the 31st. She will be 2. And this was the size that her food came in. You might be like, well, Pastor Franklin, what does that have to do with no limits and Romans 2? I want to show you. Because the thing, and this was the cup that Corbin drank out of. And trust me when I tell you, he even got a refill. But this was the cup that he drank out of. Versus Ryan, this is typically the cup that, or the size of the cup that she will drink out of. Just to let y'all know, for anybody who has grandchildren, beware of when your children leave their children's items at your house. That means that they expect for the children to return to your house when they start leaving stuff at your house. Come on, can any grandparents relate to that? When they start leaving the children's items at your house and they tell you that you can keep them, that means that they have all intentions for the children to return to your house. So whenever they start doing that, just know that that is the unspoken communication that they plan for the children to return to your house. So as you can see, there is all intentions for Ryan to return to our house. Thank you, Antonio, because they left cups. And I noticed the other day that when I was washing clothes, I found one of her little outfits in my laundry. I said, oh my God, she's really coming back, because not only do I have cups, but now I have clothes. Ooh, that's a sure sign that they are coming back. Praise Jesus. We just thank God for grandchildren. But the thing that I want you to understand is that when I sat down to the table with Ryan and I gave her her food, she did not. Oh, y'all didn't see Papa throwing thumbs up like she coming back. She coming back. But when we, yesterday, we sat down to the table and Ryan was not concerned about the size of anybody else's plate. Come on here. Pastor Fran is going somewhere with this. She didn't even care if anybody else had food. She didn't stop and say, Mommy and Daddy, do y'all want some? She came straight to the table with Grand Fran. And she, yeah, that's my name. She sat straight to the table with Grand Fran and she started to eat. She didn't stop to say, Mommy and Daddy, do y'all want some? Grand Fran, do you want some? All she knew is that she had what she needed. You might be like, well, Pastor Fran, where are you going with that? Because sometimes when we get so busy at looking at the size of somebody else's plate, we start to think that God has not done it for us. We start to think that because my plate is not the same size as somebody else's plate, or my cup is not the same size as somebody else's cup, we will think that God has not done it for us. And so the reason that we're pointing that out is because then what happens is that idea that is within our head makes us think that God has limits at who he will serve and who he will bless and who he will not bless. It's not the fact that God didn't do it. It's now the fact that I'm looking at the size. Ooh. Sometimes the size makes me limit what I think God will do for me. Come on here. And the thing that I love about what Ryan did yesterday, she wasn't concerned about the size of her bowl. All she knew is that I had what I needed. Oh God. She said, I trust who's feeding me to make sure that I have what I need. How many of you can say, even though I may not have what I want, I may not even have it in the amount or the quantity that I pray for it in. But because I trust the God that is providing it for me, I know that he is giving me enough for what I need for today. Whew. He's given me enough of what I need for today, because whatever she got on yesterday, it was enough to sustain her for today. Oh my God. I'm going to do something on the spot, and my son is going to help me do this. My son is going to bring his daughter in the picture, because I watch this. I fed her on yesterday, but he's going to show us her today. Oh my God. Do y'all see her? The food that she had, she gonna smile and she gonna talk to you, and y'all just pray, because we don't know what she might do and what she might not do. This is unscripted. But the thing that, she's waving at you now, but the thing I want you to understand is that what she got on yesterday was enough to sustain her for her today. Come on here. Because sometimes we be thinking that God don't know what he doing because he didn't give us, thank you, son. We be thinking that God didn't give us enough on our yesterday, so I'm mad. Has anybody ever been mad about what they got on yesterday, but not really understanding that the God that you serve gave you just what you needed to sustain you to your today? Come on here. Well, God, I prayed for 10,000 and I only got 1,000. He said the 1,000 was all you needed for your today. Oh God. Well, God, I prayed for a car with, 2 seats, but I just got a 1-seater. He said the 1-seater is all you need for today. Has anybody ever been mad because God didn't give you what you prayed for? And then you started thinking that God had limits at who he was blessing, because he gave somebody else the 4-bedroom house, but still yet he gave you a 1-bedroom apartment. And I thought that God had limits at what he would do for me, all because the size messed me up. Has anybody ever been messed up because of the size of it? Whew. And again, the thing that I love about Ryan is the fact that she didn't say, Grandfriend, why come I didn't get a big plate like Papa? Why come I didn't get a big plate like Uncle T? She just said, I see this bowl. And this bowl is enough to make me understand and to help me understand is that I got exactly what I need. Now, my husband and I, as being the ones who went and got the food, I told y'all how far we drove, the time that it took us to get there. It took us about 40 minutes from where we were at to go get the food. How many of you know that when God has something for you, there is no limit? God does not check your zip code. Oh my God. God does not check your bank account, because we sure didn't check Ryan's bank account before we went and got it. We didn't check anything. All we wanted to know was how we was going to get there so we could bring it back. And sometimes we're thinking that because of our zip code, that it limits God from getting it to us. I just came to share, to bring notice and help somebody understand that, watch this, your zip code doesn't matter. Your bank account does not matter. Your education and or your degrees does not matter. Because when God has purposed and planned something for your life, He said, I will go the distance to make sure that you get it. Oh my God. Because somebody has been thinking, oh my God, God has promised me all of these things, and God has said all of these things pertaining to me and concerning me. I don't see how I'm going to get it. And the reason that some of us struggle with that, and what that does is, watch this, that puts limits on God. Mm. But how many of us know we serve the God of no limits? I got to go back to this, because the thing that I keep hearing the Spirit say that messes us up sometimes is the fact that we start looking at size of it. Come on here. We start looking at the size of it. Has anybody ever been messed up because of the size? Because anytime, watch this, anytime you start looking at size, that means you're comparing it to something else. You're comparing it to something else. But I bring this point out to you. I want you to sort of have the Ryan mentality when it comes to this. Ryan says yesterday, she said it, but she didn't say it. It was an unspoken understood. She said, all I know is what's in front of me, and I trust that what's in front of me is enough to sustain me. Now, I can't tell you how many blueberries she's probably them ate this morning. Berries. I can't tell you how many she's probably eaten, or how many nanas she's eaten this morning. But what I do know is that she was so appreciative. Watch this. Of the food that she had on yesterday. Is that, and it was so good to her, that she put her utensil down and she said, this is a better way for me to eat it. I can focus on it better if I can just, watch this, if I can just put my hands on what's in front of me. And sometimes we limit God, because had Ryan been paying attention to Papa's plate or Uncle T's plate, she would have forgot about the fact that she had her own. Has anybody ever been messed up because you've been looking at somebody else's? You've been looking at the size of somebody else's. And it made you lose focus on what God was actually doing for you. It was making you lose focus on the fact that God says, I don't even have any limits at what I'll do for you. And sometimes the size makes us think that God has limits. Woo. But sometimes the size is an indication that you serve a strategic God that will only give you what you can handle, so you won't waste it. Oh my God. Did somebody just catch that? Sometimes the size is not indicating the limits of God. It is actually strategically emphasizing the power of your God and the care of your God to not give you more than what you can handle. What would it look like if Grandfriend would have gave Ryan this plate? Come on here. Now, her mother probably wouldn't have said nothing too much to me. But I'm sure if it was me, I would have said, now, baby, I appreciate your parents doing everything that they do, but that was a little bit too much. She's only this big. Come on. And I'm so grateful to them, because they give us the range to be free-spirited grandparents. So just knowing a little bit about her, then I try to still operate within those parameters, because she eats a lot healthier than we do. So I still try to stay within those parameters. So mommy will make sure that we do have that time and that there's no conflict or contention between us. So therefore, I do try to gauge what I do to some degree, but still yet having that liberty to be a grandparent, because as they say, that's what grandparents are supposed to do. But nevertheless, I did not. I knew. I want y'all to understand this. I knew that Ryan could not handle this plate. Oof. It does not mean, watch this, it does not mean that Ryan won't grow to where she can eat a plate like this. Because trust me, when she's at my house, there are times that I want to text her mama and her daddy and ask, can we get a little bit of food assistance? Okay? Because it be going down just like that. She says, bite, 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 more, more, more. But I knew, and I want to put emphasis on this, because sometimes we limit the ability of God because of the size that he gave us. But God said, I knew what you needed for today. And I gave you that to sustain you for your tomorrow. Because how many of us know that it's a day-by-day walk? It's a day-by-day walk. How would that have looked? And the problem that we have is we're like, well, we're adults. But how many of us know in every adult there is a child? Oh my God. In every adult, there is a child. And in every adult, there is a child that longs to be guided. Oh my God. He created us that way. And sometimes if I don't learn how to balance the Ryan in me, I will miscalculate the grandfriend that I'm purposed to walk into. Did somebody just catch that? Because in every one of us is a child that needs a father. And we're looking at it sometimes from the perspective of, oh, I'm an adult. I can handle all of this. I can handle all of this. But the reason that I didn't get Ryan the bigger plate is because I know that she is still growing. Not only is she still growing, but I don't want to, watch this, create the mentality or the expectation of giving her these big plates when I know she's really not ready for them. Because all that's going to put her in the position to do is overeat. Come on, did somebody just catch that? Do you know that sometimes the reason that God didn't give you what you was asking for in the manner that you're asking for it in is because all it's going to do is make you overeat. It's going to make you overspend. It's going to make you over-engage. And then it's going to be as if then you're going to be fighting things. It's going to be as if he's never done it. And then you're going to be fighting things that you wouldn't typically and normally fight, all because I gave you too much, too fast, too soon. There's no limits at what God will do for you. But the size has thrown some of us off. We've been beating ourselves up, and the enemy has been having a field day with that. But I'm trying to bring light to this thing so you can see God in a different manner. How many of us have been praying for this? This is the big play. Come on. I've been praying for the big play. I've been praying for the big play. But it looks like you're only getting a little bowl. And the enemy has told you, maybe you don't, watch this, maybe you don't deserve it. Maybe because you're not this. Or maybe because you're not that. Or maybe because you're not from this zip code. Or maybe because you don't drive this car. Or maybe because you don't live in a gated community. Or maybe because you don't have 5 degrees. That it's never going to happen for you. Has anybody ever been told that because of, I've been looking at the bowl, and the bowl has been telling me that God is limited at what he will give me. There's limits at what God will give me. And sometimes God is strategic. Not sometimes. God is always strategic at how much he does give you. I want you to, I got to say that again. God is strategic at what he does give you. I know a little bit about Ryan's mom, that I know now grandfriend gives her snacks when she comes. She likes fruit snacks. But I happened to look in her bag one day, and I think mommy has just left it in there over a course of time. But I looked in there one day, and it was some type of little protein something that was in the bag, the front of the bag. I quickly zipped it back up. Just to be honest with you, I just zipped it back up. But the point that I want to make in that is that she's very strategic at what she does give her. Because what she's trying to do, and I understand it completely, she's trying to make sure that Ryan is balanced in the good and the things that are not so good. Could it be that God didn't do it the way that you necessarily prayed for him to do it, but he did it in a manner that you will be balanced and not always look at him as being Santa Claus? Because there's times that her mom has to give her stuff that she necessarily may not like, but she knows that it's good for her. And she's strategically giving it to her in portions that causes her, come on here, to be balanced in her appetite. Oh my God. But the enemy has been telling you that, oh, because God didn't give it to you just the way that you asked for it, then he doesn't have intentions on giving it to you, or he has restrictions. He's going to give it to these people over here and not you. But if we look at what the word of God says, the word of God says, and this is the scripture, it says, for God shows no partiality, no arbitrary favoritism. Understand that now. It's not saying that God does not show you favor. Woo. I'm going to preach on that one day. It's not saying that God does not show you favor. It says God does not show favoritism. Oh, God. So what that means is whatever God has done for somebody else, he is willing to do it for me. It may not be the same size. Oh, my God. But he is willing to do it for me. I need for somebody to catch that. Whatever God is willing to do for somebody else, he's also willing to do it for me, even though it may be a different size. Whew. Did somebody just catch that? Because the enemy has been having you to think that because you got a different size, it limited what God was going to do for you. God says, no, I love you so much that I'm only going to give you so much at a specific point in time because I don't want it to go to waste. I don't want it to go to waste. I'm telling you what I know I'm hearing. Size has been a contributing factor at how we see God. Because we've been thinking that God is unfair. Come on, can I just get somebody to be real? Because I saw somebody else with something that I really wanted and that I really prayed for. And I'm sitting there thinking that God is unfair because he did not do it for me in the manner, or watch this, he didn't do it for me in the size that he did it for somebody else. But I came to tell you, every increase that you see somebody with does not mean that it was God. Every increase that you see somebody with does not mean that it was God who gave the increase. Oh my God. Pastor Fran, what are you talking about? Because if it's an increase, that automatically equates to it being something that God did. No. No. Do you not know that sometimes, as we get ready to close, sometimes we are jealous over people who have acquired something out of disobedience? I want you to just think about that. Sometimes we are jealous of people who have acquired something out of disobedience, and then we're mad and we're coming back and we're looking at God like, you're just so unfair. Why did you bless them with that? And why did you do that for them? And why did you do it for that? That's what I've been praying for, God, and you gave it to them. Somebody just helped Pastor Fran out and said, every increase is not of God. Whew. And we know the story of Gehazi. Come on, if I got anybody that understands that, just wave your hand or give me some type of indication. You know the story of Gehazi. Gehazi instantly became, if it was equivalent to modern day money, he instantaneously became a millionaire. But we know the story. He acquired it out of disobedience. And that disobedience that he acquired it out of led him to being corrected and punished and dealt with because of his decision to acquire it. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that he obtained increase. And I want you to understand that sometimes, if we are not careful, the enemy will have us looking at people who have acquired something out of disobedience, then coming back in our feelings and acting funny and shady towards God, not even wanting to walk in obedience, not even wanting to hear the word, not even wanting to come to church, not even wanting to lift my hands. I ain't giving no more money to the church. I'm not paying no more money to the church. I'm not making the preacher rich. I'm not paying their house note. I'm not paying their car note. Well, I'm not even going going to go there, but nevertheless, we have that mentality sometimes because we're mad and we feel like God has shortchanged us. But I came to tell you, every increase that somebody gets is not of God. And if we don't know the difference, it will have us in our feelings. And then we're going to be thinking that God has done us wrong. He did us dirty. God, I came to church for 2 weeks straight and now they get that. And God, I don't understand that. Sometimes you got to check the source. Oh God. But because we are up under the mentality and the idea that if it's good, it's God, and if it's bad, it's the devil, we think that everything that somebody posts and everything that somebody says that God gave them is really God. Some of that stuff, I just got to tell you, it's not God, and God didn't do it. Some of that stuff is because of their job. Some of that stuff is because of their education. Some of that stuff is because, watch this, if your company does things to keep you, don't you think the devil will do some things to keep you on team devil? Don't you think he will do things to keep you on team disobedience? Oh God. He does things. Let me tell you something. The enemy has an incentive package just as well. Hmm? Think about that. And if we're not careful, we will be thinking that God did us a disservice, that God did us wrong. Has anybody ever felt like, well, why I keep coming to church for? If these people can live any kind of way and they get this and they get that, that just ain't fair. And then you looking at God like, you need to increase your incentive package because this ain't fair. But God sent this word today to tell the people and to empower the people that he has no limits. But in my closing, God said, I don't respect the person. I don't have respect for an individual. But that individual can acquire something that I do respect, that I will favor. Does anybody know what that is? One day I was being mentally, I'm just being transparent. I was being mentally attacked by the enemy. And the enemy asked me the question, what make you think? And if I got anybody that can relate to what Pastor Fran is about to say, just give me a virtual hand wave or type something over in the chat section. And the enemy asked me the question one day. He said, what makes you think that God would do something like that for you? Anybody know what I'm talking about? What makes you so special? What do you have that the other person doesn't have that sets you so far apart that God would do something like that for you? And that was the moment that he was trying to sow doubt and trying to make me not believe and to get me so frustrated that I walked in disobedience. Because I need for you to understand that's the enemy's ultimate goal. Because he understands that disobedience will lead to destruction. And I sat there and I pondered on it, and I thank God for the Spirit of God that quickened me and said, it's not you that I'm honoring, but you do have something that I will honor. Because the enemy was trying to get me to look at me. Oh God, somebody catch this. But God was trying to get me to look at what was in me. Oh God. Greater, and we quote this scripture sometimes, but I think we lack the real power and the essence of what it means. How many of us have ever quoted the scripture, greater is he that is within me than he that's in the world? And we know that we get God in us by being in his word and putting his word on the inside of us. And so if God is on the inside of us and his word is on the inside of us, sometimes the enemy is trying to take your focus off what's in you and get your focus and your attention on you, oh God. And oftentimes when he is trying to draw your attention to you, his motive is to draw your attention away from the word, oh God. This is why he wants you looking at you. Well, what's so great about you? What's so significant about you? What's so special about you? And then you beating yourself up, and your self-esteem about yourself is constantly declining. Because the more you look at yourself, the more that you see that you are just average. But there is something that you have acquired. Because right now, this cup is just a cup. I can do whatever I want to do with the cup. Come on here. But the cup really does not have any significance. Oh God, watch this, because I'm showing you a picture of you. Ooh, oh my God. Because apart from the word, every one of us is nothing but a cup. Oh God. And we don't really have any use. There's not much use for us until, until we put something in the cup. And so many times, the enemy has tried to make our attention be about the cup. This is why he will ask you. He does not ask you, he's strategic. He does not ask you what's in you, that God will do it for you. Come on. Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? He asks you about you, not what's in you. And as I was dealing with that and I was, contemplating on that, the Lord began to show me it's not what's about you that I'm going to honor, but it's my word that's in you that I'm going to honor. Come on here. That needs to be somebody's responses to the devil. When the devil asks you, what's so great about you? Why would God do it for you? I don't know if he'll do it for me, but I know I got a word on the inside of me that he will show enough honor and do it because of that, if nothing else. Because he has no limits. I'm going to close. He has no limits. Don't let the size of what God is doing in your life make you think that God has limits to what he will do for you.